Together for the first Herrmann annual family reunion. Everybody's gathered together. You can probably hear a lot of noise in the background, a lot of brethren talking, visiting with one another, visiting their kinfolks that's come from several of them from other states, different parts of the country, a lot of them from here and about. They have three pictures over here laying on in picture frames of the original Herrmann homestead. There's a log cabin house with a barn behind it in one picture. The other picture has a barn with a silo, and the other picture is just a log cabin house setting out between some trees. Brother Dan and Sister Maud Herrmann are standing by the pictures. Brother Dan is the second generation of the Herrmann family. His parents came over from a foreign country many years ago. Later on, when I get time, I'll visit with Brother Dan, find out what the pictures are about, whose homes they were, and who built the silos, and how long they lived there, and if we'll find out the history of the pictures, and as much as we can, the history of the Herrmann family from Dan and Carl. Carl Herrmann is Dan's brother, and their parents that originally came here from another country. We'll find out as much as we can about their parents, when they came over, where they came from, if they know, and how long they lived on these places that are in the pictures, and what children were born in these homes, and as much as we can about them. I'll just look around now briefly, and then we'll go back to visiting with Dan and Carl later and tell you several that are here. I'm willing to try to visit with individuals and let them speak, but I probably won't be able to get to everybody, but I'll visit with as many as I can and speak to them. But I'll just look around now and explain to you the setting. We're under one of the little picnic sheds that are built down here at the park and around it, and of course I see Brother Dan and Sister Maud, Brother Carl and Sister Bonnie Herrmann, and Brother Bobby Herrmann and his wife, Sister Della Jean, are here from Pleasant View. Brother Troy Herrmann and his wife and family are here from Pleasant View. And over here to my right, I see Brother Vernon Rutherford and Sister Della, and see Bill and Etta Worthy. Alvy Herrmann and his family are here. Pauline Crank, used to be Stevens, and several of her children are here. Of course, children are scattered all over the park. I can see them clear as far as you can see over there at the swings, and I would estimate probably there's approximately 200 that's gathered together at this time. Later on, I'll visit with individuals. Right now, I'm just going to sign off. They're getting ready to eat dinner, and I'll sign off, and then we'll visit with individuals later as to where they live now, who their children are, and who their parents are, their grandparents before them, and try to link up the family tree of the Herrmann generation from the old Grandpa Herrmann that came from overseas down to the generation that they live in. Okay, we're gathered together now to visit with each of the descendants, or the first generation after Albert, William, Charles, and Sarah Alice Herrmann. We'll take them kind of in the order that they're in this family reunion book. And first off, we'll visit with Sister Gladys Tibbet, which is daughter of Otis and Charlie Herrmann. Is that right, Sister Gladys? Otto and Carrie Otto. Okay. We'll probably make a lot of mistakes in this, but you'll just have to excuse them. And we'll start in with Sister Gladys. And Sister Gladys, who were your parents?
Otto Herrmann and Carrie Marmaduke.
And how old were your parents when they were married? Do you know? You don't know. Where were they married at?
I think Chandler, Oklahoma.
Chandler, Oklahoma. Do you know who married them? Just Justice Peace, or?
No, I think it was Judge.
Mm-hmm.
Judge Cardell, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Well, do you know of anything concerning your parents that you would like to tell about of their history? Actually, I want to try to get off of me talking so much on this, so I just want to do this. Each of you, after we introduce your parents, what you can think of about your parents, I'll just turn you loose. You tell about your parents as much as you can, where they lived, and their children. Each one of them name their children, and so on. So at this time, if you'll name your children, we'll start with that. The children, your brothers and sisters of Otto and Carrie.
Walter Herrmann, and then myself, Gladys, and Goldie Herrmann. No, there's one before that. Pearl. No. Yes, it was Pearl. Yes, Pearl.
Who did Walter marry?
Levine Herrmann.
Do they have any children?
Two. Donnie and their son.
Who did Goldie marry?
And Lola May is their daughter.
Oh, okay, excuse me.
Goldie married Irvin Isley.
And name their children.
Wanda Lou, Daryl, and Larry.
Now, if you can't think of their children's name, well, just go ahead and bypass it and say you can't. And, of course, your children.
Wayne and Ethel and Wayne. Ethel's the oldest, and then Wayne.
Okay. Can you now give a kind of a history of your parents as much as you know about them?
Well, don't know too much about them. I can't even remember my daddy.
Mm-hmm.
When they first married, they lived a mile and a half south of Park.
Mile and a half south of Park.
Yeah, on old Sandine farm. That's where they farmed the first year.
All I can remember about my daddy is one time we got ready to go to church, and he told me to sit in my little rocker there and keep clean, not get dirty till I got ready to go to church.
Yeah, well.
And that's all I ever remember.
Yeah. Well, we'll probably come back to each individual, but this time I'd like to ask anybody that is around if they have anything they'd like to ask Sister Gladys concerning her mother or dad.
Where did your dad meet your mother?
The question was asked as to where her dad met her mother, and Sister Gladys says she doesn't know. Brother Simon says Parkland.
Short was Parkland where he met her at.
Well, does any of you know who baptized my daddy and my mother?
Well, I don't.
No one seems to know.
I suppose I just offhanded a guess, and I imagine old brother Nathan Parashaw baptized her. Now, that's just guesswork with me, because
Do you know Brother Carl?
I imagine that's about right. Brother Nathan Parshaw probably baptized.
Yeah.
The question was asked, did Uncle Otto get killed when the team ran away? And Sister Gladys answered.
He lived 9 days, wasn't it? I think 9 days.
9 or 10 days, I forget now which
9 or 10
one.
days, and then
Now, I was with him when he got killed.
Brother Carl Herrmann was with him when he got killed. Would you tell what happened, Brother Carl?
He'd made a promise that he would meet a fella at 12 o'clock. And he was in a hurry because it's getting late. We'd borrowed a wagon. Now, as a small boy, was on the way to get 2 loads of corn. He had bought a farm, had his family on the farm, trying to pay for it. He decided he had enough cattle and surplus stuff that he could sell off and pay his farm out. Old Sandy farm. I helped break the ground. He cleared it up, broke it. Brother Lawrence Watkins shucked the plow, and I drove the lead team. And I don't know just who drove the other team, but we had 3 teams on there plowing that stumpy ground. And old Brother Lawrence Watkins had just come up here from Arkansas, young man. Wasn't married yet. And he decided that he'd just go ahead and keep his 2 teams and go in debt and buy enough corn to make another crop before he paid his place off. So we headed west to Parkland, over right 2 miles south of where Tryon is. He used to meet a fella there at 12 o'clock to buy 2 loads of corn. Well, we borrowed this other wagon from old Bill Bolton. We went down and got it, and of course we paid no attention to it. He hooked his team on, and we started out. I was following in behind him, and this wagon, we didn't know that it had the single tree wired on it with baling wire like farmers does. Also, this skiddy mule he is driving, he didn't let me drive it, he had me drive the team of mares. And a baling wire broke is what first caused the accident. From the hames back to the backbone, back band on the old harness. And what they call britching to hold the wagon back going down a hill. They slid back on this mule's kind of harness sliding off of him. And Otto, in a hurry, he said he never did like to break a promise. When he made a promise that he would be there. And just as we crossed the railroad, about approximately 8 3/4 miles west of Parkland, right straight west of Parkland, why, he's going over a railroad track. Well, he stepped with 1 foot out on the tongue. In double trees, in order to save time to stop and fix up his harness and one thing and another. And this mule, it scared it. Whenever he touched his hips, he thought he was going to whip him or something, I suppose. And the mule lunged forward. And at that, it scared them, and they started running away with him. I was right in behind him and could see all that happened.
Now that is Sister Gladys's father, Brother Carl Herrmann, explaining as to how that he got killed. Is there anything else that anybody wants to know concerning Sister Gladys's parents and Brother Walter's parents? Yeah. At this time now we'll go on to the next individual, and that would be the Jacobs family. Otis, could you come over just a minute? We'll visit with Otis here now as to, he'll explain to you who his parents were and so on. Otis, who were your parents? And
Forrest Jacob and Odessa Herman.
Do you know how old they were when they got married, where they were married and so on?
Well, no, I don't know where they were married. I think my mother was 18 and my father was about 24, 25.
Could you name off your brothers and sisters?
Yes, sir. I'm the oldest, and then Thelma is next, and then Ruth, Grace, Eldon, Albert, Ruby, and Annis.
Do you know anything concerning any individual of your brothers and sisters that you would like to tell about, the happenings when they were children, or anything, the history of the family, any incidents?
Well, when I was about 4 years old, my father bought a farm down there on Dry Creek, of which we were all raised there on Dry Creek. And of course that was his place till my mother died, and he also passed away.
Could you give now just a history of your parents as to when they died, maybe how they different things that might have happened to them, or your memory of them, where they lived, anything that would be something that people would like to hear?
Well, not necessarily at this time. They lived right there, and then of course she had pneumonia and died. And then my father, he died with a heart attack. My mother died with pneumonia.
Is there anybody that knows of anything they'd like to ask Otis concerning his parents? Is any of the other Jacob children here? Eldon? Eldon, would you take hold of the mic here just a minute? I'd like to hear your voice. Grace is here too. If Grace will come up, we'll talk to her in just a minute. Eldon, do you know of anything that happened to your family, your brothers or sisters, or your parents that you hold fond memory of you'd like to tell about?
No, not in particular.
Were you raised up on a farm?
Yes, we were raised right there on the farm north of Chandler.
Was your dad farmed? Hoed cotton.
Sweet potatoes. Raised sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
Watermelons.
Is any of the other children here? Where's here? You're Grace?
Yes.
You're Grace. All right, here's Grace. And Grace, do you know of anything you'd like to tell about of your happenings while you in your childhood, while you was living with your parents?
Well, I remember once when they found a snake in the bedroom closet.
That probably created an excitement.
And my dad took it out in the backyard, and they, can't remember how he took it out there, but anyway, I remember him standing there for some time praying for confirmation to pick
Well,
and
well, that's
it was
wonderful.
a wonderful experience.
Yeah. Okay, is there anything else? Anybody wants to ask the Jacob generation? Is someone asked Eldon if he ever got a whooping? Or a thrashing? I don't think he wants to answer that. Okay, next we'll talk to Brother Dan Herrmann. And Dan, if you'll take this and hold it up about so far from your mouth there. Dan, who were your parents?
Well, Albert Jacob, Albert Herrmann was my father, and Alice Herrmann was my mother.
Now,
My father went by the name of A.W.C. most of the time, and about all I can remember. Of course, he had 3 names, but that's what he went by more than anything else, A.W.C. Herrmann.
Brother Dan, do you know when your parents came over from, I understand that your parents, the first generation of the Herrmann family, came from overseas. Is that correct?
Well, my father came from overseas.
He came from overseas. You know about when?
No, he was a sailor about 7 years, and he was about 27 years old, if I remember right, when they got married, what he said.
Mm-hmm. Where'd they get married at?
Well, I don't know. My mother's folks lived in Indiana, there where the town is now, Indianapolis.
Were all you children born here in Oklahoma after they moved to Oklahoma, or some of you?
Well, Otto was born in Kansas. And so
First off, let me ask you who your brothers and sisters were. If you'll name them off, you can go right down this list and name them off here. First, can you see that? Well, you can probably name them one by one. Just go ahead and name them.
Otto was the oldest, and then Walter was the next, and he took diphtheria and died there while he lived in Kansas, around Cedar Vale, best I can remember or hear them talk about. And of course, after they moved them down here to Oklahoma, come down here in the run, well,
It's about like that.
Desi was born in the tent before they could get. No, well, Christy was born in Kansas. wasn't she?
Yeah.
Yeah, Christy was born in Kansas, and then Desi was born here in Oklahoma. They came on the run, and she was born before my father could get a house or anything built. She was born in the 10. And old Sister Toles waited on her, and Sister Toles was in the faith at that time, and she come down there and stayed with Mama about a week before Desi was born or something like that. And of course she talked the faith all the time she was there, and then just as soon as my mother got able and got up, well, she accepted the faith, and then my father accepted it right straight. I don't know whether it was anything like the same day or not, but it wasn't long after. And of course that was back several years ago. That was before I was born even.
Yeah.
I was born in 1895, and Desi was born in 3 years before I was. And of course, that so damn big was adopted in the faith back in 83, I guess.
How many children did you have?
Well, there was 8 children, I believe.
Let's see, you haven't named them all yet, have you?
No.
Okay.
After Desi, and then Marie was next, and then,
Where's that Christy
no.
at?
Well, Christy, I done named her.
Well, Jesse and then you. Marie was
Oh,
another
was I after Desi?
Here, Maud, why don't you tell us who the children were? Go ahead. Here, take it and just put it up close and go ahead and tell us who the children were one at a time, if you will. Just go down and name them all off first. It's all right. Start the first child on down.
Otto, Walter, and Christy. Walter and Christy. And then Desi and Dan. Carl
And Marie.
Carl, Marie, Faye. Marie and then Chester. Yeah, Faye, Marie, and Chester.
Faye, Marie, and Chester. Is that all of them? Did you name Arnold?
All right, Arnold's our children.
Yeah. That's right. Okay. I see now.
Arnold's my boy.
Okay, now then, Brother Dan, will you give a little bit of a history of your parents as the best you can remember, where they lived? I might ask you, I was wanting to get into it. First off, we have 3 pictures over here. We have one on the left of a log cabin house, it looks like. How big a house is that? Do you remember?
I believe it's 18 by 14.
How many rooms?
2 rooms. That is, the biggest room was 18 by 14, and the kitchen was 18 by about 12, 10 or 12, something like that.
Did your dad build that house?
Well, him and the neighbors did.
It is.
At that time, you see, they had what they call log rollings, and they'd go to work and cut these logs and haul them in, and then the neighbors would all
Put it right out there.
get together and help them lay them up. My father said he got the most of those logs down on the old Wheeler place, which is 4 miles south of Parkland. That'd be 3 miles south of the place that he homesteaded.
Do you know?
Homesteaded there a mile south of Parkland.
Do you know how many of the children was born in this log cabin house here?
Well, all of them from Dan Herrmann on down.
All of them from Dan on down. Well, that's pretty well all of them, isn't there? Then the barn in the background. Do you know? Can you tell us about the barn? Anything? Who built it, or maybe something happened to it, or?
The barn wasn't built for several years afterwards because my father run the first cotton gin that was ever in Lincoln County, if I remember right. And he first put it up on the corner where, which is just exactly a mile south of Parkland. And when Parkland wanted to build a town, they wanted to lay out the town site down there on my dad's place. And he wouldn't sell to them. But here a while back, there was one of their neighbors said that he was born there in Parkland, and his dad had helped stake out Parkland, and he said that they wanted to stake it out down there a mile south, and the feller that owned the land didn't have clear title to it. I told him, well, I think he was mistaken because my dad was the one that owned the farm, and I suppose he had a clear title to it because he homesteaded.
Out behind this house, on the right-hand side, I see a water well. Did Yuns dig the well, or?
No, the first well he dug by hand. It's set just right north of the house, and it didn't pour enough water, of course, and shallow well. And he had one drilled out there, and it went down about 2.5 feet, and struck sand rock, and they drilled it 50 foot exactly, and went through all the sand rock and hit clay, and he had the driller to stop, which I think was old brother Dal Overacker that drilled it. I ain't for sure, but I think he's the one that drilled it. And then my father, of course, was hauling freight from Guthrie. He had to go to Guthrie after his groceries and everything at that time, and he bought a pump over there, and he hauled it back one day on the wagon with the groceries and stuff, and they put a pump in the well.
The middle picture now has an old barn. It's not the same barn, is it? And then a silo out in front of it. Could you tell us what this picture's about?
Well, that's the same barn that he built, but he built that after he sold his cotton gin. When he had that cotton gin, well, he didn't have sufficient water there a mile south of Parkland, and of course he lived down there in the holler west, half a mile practically on the farm, and he moved this cotton gin down there, and then he still didn't have water enough to satisfy him, and he had such a small gin that he couldn't keep the cotton ginned up, and he got 3 other neighbors to go in with him, and they put this gin over on the creek, which is a mile west of Parkland and a half mile south on the west side of the road. And then here a bunch of the company come in there and put a gin in Parkland and got these other 3 fellers that was in with him to go in with that gin, and unbeknownst to him, and he got excited and thought he was blowed up, and so he got a chance to sell his gin to D.R. Owens, and he sold the gin to D.R. Owens, and when he sold it to him, after they tore it down, well, he hired a neighbor that lived there in Parkland to build this barn, and this barn was built out of the old gin building, seed house, and cotton seed house, out of the barn. And I was just a kid when they tore that barn down, and I and my brother Otto was the ones that moved it, and Emery Dean, our neighbor there, was just a boy the same as I was, running around there, and we was helping what we could, and we picked up some boards and carried, putting on the wagon, and finally I picked up the one next to the last one, and started the wagon with it, and this Emery Dean that was there, and he picked up the board from me, said, let me have this and you get that other, and I went back to get the other, and whenever I picked it up, the copperhead bit me between the toes. And I guess from what they say, I like to die. I don't know. My leg was swelled and plumbed in my body, and I was a terrible sick. What Fanny says, she said I cried and wanted them to pray for me all the time. She said we was praying for him, but said they didn't know we was praying for him, wanted us to pray out loud all the time.
Yeah. You have another picture of just one log cabin house by itself. Could you tell us about it?
Well, that log cabin by itself, that's the one that my father built.
Oh, this is the same one as in the first picture?
No, that's
Aunt Bonnie said that's just a picture.
Oh, that second one back there, that's one of Aunt Bonnie's grandpa's.
No, she just painted the picture.
Oh, okay. She just...
Her grandpa's
All right, okay.
house down on Deep Fork.
Okay, do you know of anything, Brother Dan, of your parents that you'd like to tell us about, of the history or something that sticks in your mind?
Well, all I could say, I know when we was just kids at home, well, they, I don't know, I guess had quite a little zeal to go to meeting.
Have church in their home?
They had meeting down on Deep Fork and down around Chandler and up around Cushing, and they'd get in a hack and leave us children at home to do the chores, and they'd maybe be gone a day or two and off meeting, visiting around with a brother.
Mm-hmm.
And also then lay on down the years, well, Carl took typhoid fever or pneumonia or something and was sick pretty bad. And my father had the farm rented there south of us, which was old St. Dean's farm. And besides, our farm was practically a three-team farm, and they had both farms rented, and they felt like that they'd ought to go out west where Brother Enoch and Sister Annie Haynes lived, and they just kept putting it off. And finally one day Mama told Papa, says, we've got to do something. Carl's going to lay here and die. And one of our horses got sick, and finally Otto says they made up their mind to go, and so they got out and hunted up a little old scrawny team of ponies, come bringing them in. And didn't look like they was able hardly to make it to Guthrie, but they fixed up the hack and put Chester in there, or Carl in there, and started out. And they got as far as Guthrie, and it rained on practically all the way over there. And they stopped over there and bought some stuff to cover the hack with, so as to keep Carl from getting wet. They went on out there, and when they got there, well, Sister Nanny Haynes was there in bed. I guess was about to die, and she said she had a dream that a fella come and prayed for her, and she got all right. And when Papa and them come, she said it was a man that was broken, a foreigner. And whenever they come, and she says, well, that's the man that I had the dream about. And I guess in a few days, they wrote back and said she is getting lots better, and Carl was getting better, but